Hey, I get this stuff all the time, friends, neighbors, family, people who just think I like to fix things nonstop. But this is from a neighbor. I just got this, so let's see what it is. Carefully wrapped. He told me it was treasured within the family. It was given to him from a friend, I think in Scotland, and he told me it was bronze. He thinks it's bronze, and as you can see, it's this hair has lost his ear. He did tell me that he's tried to repair this, and as with most repairs, you can see where the attempted glue was. I don't know if this has been repaired once or twice. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell how clean the break is. So when I look at a project like this, I have to sort of do some detective work and figure out, first of all, what is this? Is it really bronze? It's very heavy, but it doesn't have that cold feel like metal does. It's hard to tell from tapping it, but I suspect it's not bronze. So we'll get to that. And then I have to assess the amount of surface area that I have to bond, the condition of it. Are there pieces missing? Is it fit really tight? And then has it been repaired before? And yes, this has. Funny story is he went and bought Gorilla Glue to fix this. He's got the foaming polyurethane Gorilla Glue on here. And, typical guy, he didn't really read the instructions or anything. And he puts them on and he held this. He said he held it for over an hour. I guess it took a cocktail or two. And he just held it and held it and held it. And when he let go, it fell. So obviously, the Gorilla Glue is foaming and expanding, and not the best choice for a repair like this, where it would be very difficult to secure it or clamp it accurately. So not the best choice. So here's what we're going to do. Step number one, we're going to try to determine what this material is. Step number two, we're going to try to clean off this old glue without damaging the surface below it. So we don't want to damage that nice tight fit if it's there. And then finally, we're going to assess the best way to make a repair. On this one, if you're just going to sit this on the shelf and be extremely careful with it, and it's a good friend and they're not going to come back at you if it breaks, you could probably just use a light gluing and be careful. But, if you want to give this to a customer or a friend that, think you don't know if they're going to take really good care of it, you might want to go an extra step in the repair. And that's what we're going to do here, because I don't want to fail in this man's eyes. So I want to make sure it doesn't fail for him. There's a lot of material here and a small bond area. So just the slightest bump sideways is probably going to break this again. So no matter what glue I use. So we're going to have to think about that a little bit. Well, let's get started. Okay, so my next objective is to try and determine what material this is. So what I'm going to do is, again, look for an inconspicuous spot. So there's this piece of felt on the bottom, and I'm going to very carefully take a razor blade and just peel up a little bit of felt, just like that. And then with a very small drill bit, I'm going to do a little excavation. So this is a very small drill, and I'm just going to put a little hole in here where no one's ever going to see it. First of all, to see if I can drill it, and second of all, to try and determine what type of material it is. Now, I can see some of these little shavings that came off, and they're actually crumbling into almost like a dust. And I believe that that's probably just plastic. It's definitely not bronze, and I'll just take the sticky that's still on that felt and stick it back down, and nobody knows that was ever done. Okay, now that I'm pretty sure it's plastic, I know that I have a couple of different adhesive choices. One is super glue, another might be epoxy. I think those are two pretty good choices. Maybe even a nice all-purpose glue. The one I like is Go-To Extreme Glue gel. I like that a lot. And it's clear and it would hide stuff. But I still just don't think, due to the relationship between how much cantilevered repair and how vulnerable it is and the small size of the bonding area, I just don't want to leave it there to get bumped and break again. So what I'm going to do is an advanced method where I'm going to use two different adhesives to do two different things. First of all, we're going to bore a hole into this part of the ear, just in the crack, and into this part of the ear, just the crack. And in that hole, we're going to use epoxy and a pin. It's going to be a metal dowel, if you will. The perfect dowel would have threads on it, but it's pretty small, so I don't think I'll find a threaded rod that small. It's important that it's very accurate, and the epoxy is going to anchor this, making it a permanent bond, and it'll never knock off because it'll be reinforced by that pin. Now, the next problem is, how do I hold that in place until that epoxy cures? Well, that's where I'm going to use super glue. So I'm going to epoxy. I'm going to then put a drop of super glue on either side of the epoxy, and I'm going to use that as my clamp. I'm going to position it, and I'm going to hold it right in place as long as I can until the super glue cures. The super glue will then hold the ear in place until the epoxy cures and give me a permanent repair. Let's get started. Okay, so I've prepared my work surface, got some tools that I think I might need, and made sure my rabbit's really comfortable. Couple things. This is a polyurethane adhesive. I know this both from experience as well as characteristically. I can see that it's foamed and it's relatively soft and bubbly, foamy. So it's not a rigid bond. So I'm like 99% sure that is Gorilla Glue white polyurethane. So I also know by determining that the solvent for this is acetone. What I don't know is what the acetone might do to the rabbit. And we don't want to kill the rabbit. So we're going to have to proceed extremely careful. My first plan is to take something that's blunt that won't damage the rabbit, such as the skewer, toothpicks, maybe even an old credit card or room key, something that I could scrape and probe without damaging it. I also have some paper towels and a brush so that once I've scraped most of the foam out, I'm going to try to lightly dampen it with the acetone to get the rest of it to break free. And I'm going to do it with this brush in a very controlled manner. So let's get started. All right, let's just pick away at this foam, and you can see it's coming off right away. It's just going to be a little bit of a tedious process. So I'm going to keep working at this until we get the most of it, the bulk of it off. Okay, that's pretty good. So now for the cleaning, we're going to take some acetone, offload it into a little cup. I checked an inconspicuous spot on the bottom to see how much damage I might receive if this leaked. And it was minimal, but I still want to be really careful. So a little bit from the cup, and then very careful application right on the edge. Just like that, and the same on the other part of the ear, just a very small amount right on the edge. And I'm going to do a couple applications and allow it to soak so that it has every opportunity to soften the residual glue that I could not squeeze. Okay, that looks pretty good. I've done this a few times. Apply a bit, let it soak, and then clean it off using a blunt object. I'm kind of down to the nitty-gritty, and I've chosen to use this old dental pick and scrape lightly. But I want to caution you, be really careful, because if it does fit tight and you take a piece of plastic or metal or whatever this is away, it's not going to fit good. So a lot of caution. I'm going really light and I'm being really careful, just trying to get those final pieces I couldn't get to with the toothpick or the skewer. There's one right there. Just very careful. Well, that's a hair better. No pun intended. Hey, I think that's actually a pretty good fit. When I dry fit it like this, you can see how nice and tight that matches up. Almost seamless with a little bit of careful gluing, maybe a little touch-up or waxing. I don't think anybody will see that repair, and it should be pretty strong.
Then came the spring and it melted the winter away. Then came the summer and it promised us better days. And though the seasons warmed, our hearts cooled, we forgot the words we used to say. In the silence we lost touch, we lost our way. It was like those words were never spoken. And our hearts were broken.
That's a hair better. If you're going to take the time to fix something, make it last.
I racked my brain and tore my heart out, held it in my hand to feel the pain. I scratched and clawed and tried to draw those words from it,